the next year's payroll and arbitration is going to go up and payroll is going to go up, so we can't spend right now. Why the hell are you saying that in public? I mean, it's just like another one of those pirate brass quotes where it's like, oh, good Lord, like, why? Why did you say that? Like, nothing positive is coming out of that quote. Like, nobody in this town's taking that positively.
This has been just yeah, it's been a baffling, confusing 6 months now. Since those deals happened, I guess. I don't know, man. The thing is, I could at least always logically explain why the Pirates made certain moves, why they did what they did. Even going back to last year when it was at the all-time low about perception. Do you really need to have Kutch on this team this year to go nowhere for? No. Just trading for what you can get, and clearly the best that we could get was what that package was. For Cole, you could have kept him, but again, this season wasn't going anywhere. Maybe you're selling him at his highest point, which still might have been his highest point because the Pirates didn't know how to use him, but you go and get the best offer you can get, and that was the best offer. They made the deal. It made sense that this team had to have some changes happen, and they made the changes happen. They weren't going anywhere last year, so I wouldn't want to invest into that team. But this year's totally different, man, especially when you already made that investment, and you got Archer and you got Kela. You've already set the tone. So now with this offseason, the way it's gone, I have nothing. There's no logical explanation. This team is essentially, you could say it's a bit better than last year's team because obviously Archer and Kela weren't there the whole year. But the loss of Polanco potentially, you just don't know what's going to happen. Some players could regress. So it's essentially the same team as it was last year. How can you theoretically go into this year knowing that it's the same team? You didn't make any changes. You didn't make any additions. You know what I mean? And the ones that you did, they were other people's backups. And we'll get to, in Gonzalez. I know Chisenhall, I still like the signing. It makes sense, but he's not a difference maker. He's going to add on. You're really hoping for a lot of things to go right, Ryan. And that's the thing. A lot of things have to go right for this team to really compete. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this team's a bad team. It's not. This team is not a bad team at all. That's the frustrating part. Last year, it was a bad team. The year before that, it was a bad team. This year, it's not a bad team. And they're not improving upon it.
And they're in a tough division.
It's gotten nothing but tougher.
It's looking like the best division in baseball. And I was just listening to Effectively Wild, and Fangraphs has their kind of updated projected standings and everything. And they basically said from first place to last place now is only, I think the difference between their projected win totals is 10. It's the lowest in any division in quite some time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be interesting. But that said, it's just first place it's not unheard of. It's not out of range for any of these teams, and it's we're just sitting here on our hands.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. This team, this division is very competitive, but don't get me wrong. I don't look at the Cubs as some powerhouse that can't be toppled, and especially the Brewers. Right. They have flaws everywhere. So
the Brewers
it's not it's
last year,
possible, but that's that adds to it. It is very possible. So get yourself in a better situation to make it happen, and I just don't see that happening right now. That's what's so frustrating, and they have the payroll flexibility to do something. And it's just they're just not doing it. They're almost to a fault, just trying to be you don't need payroll. And we say it time and time again, you don't. The teams with the highest payrolls don't win a lot. Where have the Dodgers been? They haven't won anything. So you don't necessarily need it. And it's almost the Pirates are just so much pride in that it's they want to prove everyone wrong, and they want to win it with the lowest payroll in baseball.
But
that's what their plan is.
But it's they could add $20 million and still win with one of the lowest payrolls in baseball. You know what I mean?
You make a good point. Right.
We're not saying go spend $130 million. I don't want to just spend to spend, but it's almost to the point that they're so low in free agency. They're so low at payroll. it's a luxury to add. Like,
you could have got
add right now.
You could have got. I guess you'd still have to trade Cervelli. Well, shit. You could have got Grandal. You could have got Dozier, and you could have got Cabrera, and been under $90 million if you traded Cervelli to like whatever. And look at how much you could have improved that team. I mean, hell, at that point in time, I would have had Dozier play second and Cabrera play short. I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Just play short. I don't care how bad your defense is. You know what I mean? Like with them guys in that lineup now, you're still under $90 million.
Right. So, again, moving to Huntington's quotes, talking about free agency. So he basically talked about, and I'm actually surprised this hasn't bounced around Twitter a little more with the Yinzers. But so Huntington basically said, free agency is a losing game, according to Huntington. Mm-hmm. When you sign a free agent, you have automatically outbid everyone else to get him. 95 or 99% of the time, you have theoretically overpaid to get that free agent. So, I mean, yes. And we're saying, like, no, you don't have to go buy everybody in free agency. Like, free agency is there to round out your roster. You try to get it through trades. You try to get it through trades and draft and developing your own guys. And then when you have a hole and, spring training's in a month, like, you start looking to free agency to fill those holes and round out your team. And we have holes still. The fifth rotation spot, shortstop. We could add to another bullpen. I mentioned this on Twitter, DiNardo. What happens if, we lost Santana already. He's out for the year. I love our bullpen, especially the back end. What if you go into spring training and, God forbid, Kela or Crick blows his arm out? I mean, suddenly the bullpen's not looking that good.
Right.
So all of a sudden Nevarakis is rolling in there, Feliz, and it's like, we don't know if we can really rely on these guys, especially in a major role. So, like, go get one of these guys. These relievers are going for cheap, like not cheap, but 8, 9, 10 million. But it's 1 year, it's 2 years. It's not a long-term commitment. And if you're at 70 million, why can't you add 8 million and go to 78? It's just, you're already so low. It just kills me.
I know, man. I don't know what to tell you.
So, shortstop. Let's continue on with Huntington's comments because this was interesting. So,
I want to go back. I'm sorry.
Go back.
I spaced out there. I did want to say something about that with the free agency. I mean, it's a very legit quote. I mean, if you get someone in free agency, you essentially did overpay. I mean, you're paying top dollar for whatever that is. But that's why everything comes down, and I preach so much about roster construction, and that's what it's all about. Roster construction, payroll construction. The thing is, the Pirates have put themselves in a situation to be able to get something like that. That's again what's puzzling. Yes, well, it is. But you build teams that build through a free agency typically don't succeed. They don't do well. Again, we'll go back to the Marlins. You go back to San Diego. You can go back to the NFL. I mean, where do you see the Redskins doing ever? Where do you see the Dolphins doing ever? Nothing. Like teams that build through free agency typically do not win at any sport. You must build through the draft from within, and then you acquire the pieces that you need once you're done and finished that you have a hole at. And the thing is, you've built a team in the proper way that you can afford that. You're going to pay premium dollar to make sure you get it because there's nowhere else that you can get it. So you're not going to keep yourself stuck at average when you're there. You're going to pay top dollar to get that because you need that more than anyone else needs it. So therefore, you're going to pay for it. So you are absolutely correct, Neil. You are going to pay top dollar. But that doesn't mean you just refuse to seek free agency in that way. When you are that one player away from doing something, you pay for it. And then you don't regret it because that's what you needed and you got yourself to where you wanted to be. And that's the problem. Like they just are refusing to enter it at all. And that's troublesome.
And that's the thing. We mentioned they're in a perfect spot to add. And we're not saying go get, go make a 6-year deal and try to get Bryce Harper or shit. Who knows what he's getting? But
right, I would love to have Machado, but that's not even what we're saying. We're not even saying go get those guys.
We're not even saying go get the superstar because normally in free agency there are no superstars. It's pretty much as is. But there actually is a couple superstars in this one. But you're not even going to get them. But you have openings, and like I said, you have that. The payroll is so low that you have room for that error. And we're seeing around baseball every team. They're giving these small, short-term deals out. So that's right in your wheelhouse. So you have the error that a 1-year deal basically is almost
There's no
like
error in that. That's
there's
the big
no
deal,
error
right?
there.
It's a
It's
one-year
literally
deal.
like it can't go wrong. It couldn't go wrong. If you signed a Drupal Cabrera and he sits the bench or blows his knee out in March, then
You gave
okay,
Gong
you're down
$3 million.
$3.5 million.
You gave Gong $3 million, and he hasn't played baseball in 2 years.
You gave Sean Rod last year how much?
It's $5.5, $6 million.
You know, so I mean, it's just a sunken cost at that point. But it
that's
can be
just what,
you can cushion
again,
it because you're so low. You can take that hit and keep going.
I mean, Ryan, he's not even a bench bat, but Jesus Christ, $3.5 million to have Asdrubal Cabrera on your bench. That's a steal.
And here's the other thing about that quote. You know, you said you're the top bid. You've outbid everybody. You're over. You know, you basically essentially overpaid for them. DiNardo, do you think the Mets overpaid for Jed Lowry?
Thank you. No,
not
at all.
What we're seeing in baseball this year, guys are getting these small deals. Like I was stunned when I saw that deal. I was a little surprised when I saw Dozier's. So you're at the point where there's opportunities that could have been made. Guys that like 5 years ago, not even 5 years ago, 3-4 years ago, would have been getting, $15 million a year for 4 years. Lowry went for $2 million, $20 million, or 2 years, $20 million. So you could have snuck in there and gone for that or a little more.
You're really firing me up right now, too, Ryan. You know what really pisses me off right now, too? I mean, oh, my God. Okay, so go back to Grandal. When I mentioned about how the Pirates could be sneaky and get Grandal for a 1-year deal. And how I think it actually could happen. And it happened. It wasn't for the Pirates, though, but that deal happened. What did I say, before the free agency hit? The biggest thing I was talking about, when we were talking about, Dozier and these guys, the dude that just signed with Colorado, the Mets, Nationals, Colorado, second baseman, Dan Murphy. We were specifically talking about him at that point in time. And I was like, you know what's crazy right now is the way that MLB is shaping up. I was like, paying for free agents is going to be like that opportunity, right? Because teams don't want to do it anymore, and that's where the teams like the Pirates can actually capitalize. I was like, Ryan, go back, think about this. What did I say about the Pirates? They could actually sign somebody because teams aren't. That's going to be how they can, I guess, creative, right? And that could have happened this year. Teams don't want to invest in the old aging players anymore, and teams don't want to spend money, and that's how the Pirates could go ahead and get creative. They could go that route, and they don't have to spend a ton of money to do it, as we saw. Lowry 2 years, $20 million. Asdrubal Cabrera 1 year, $3.5 million. I mean, they could have offered Asdrubal $5 million. They're at a $77 million payroll at that point in time. That's the way that they could have built this team, gone against the grain, zigged when everyone's zagging. And they're not doing it.
What was it that we were doing per one war? Was like $7 million.
Well, that's $8 million. That's what it used to be. I guess one war these days is like
so
$1
you're
million.
saying basically Jed Lowry, based off the last 2 years, is a $28 million a year player, and you could have had him for 10. So, and I guarantee what happened is a lot of these guys, and I've talked about this last couple of weeks. A lot of these teams, I bet, just you just blew it off. Oh, he's going to go for 4 years. Forget it. We're not even going to call and check on him. And then boom, Mets 2 years, $20 million to Lowry. So because you didn't pick up the phone and inquire on somebody, the Mets. I don't think the Mets overpaid at all. I don't think they even closely
Everyone's
overpaid.
been underpaid. And you know what, Ryan? The thing about that is I can understand if it's Machado or Harper. If you're like, I'm never going to bother to pick up the phone on them because it's just way out of our limits. There's no need of that. And also, you might feel that I'm not going to spend that much money on a Harper. I think that's overvalued to begin with or whatever. I mean, I can understand that. But a Jed Lowry is in your ballpark. Whether it's a 4-year, 40 or whatever, you still inquire, you still talk. That's in your ballpark. So if you didn't realize and understand that he could be signed for 2 years, $20 million, and also shame on you as a general manager of a professional team, because you should be checking in on that. I don't think there's any excuse on that. Manny, Harper, whatever. Those are pipe dreams. It just ain't happening. I don't get a Lowry. I don't get that at all. I don't see whereas like your best case scenario is an Iglesias or Galvez, and then you just stop there and don't talk to anybody else.
Well, speaking of Galvez,
no.
So
let's not talk about it.
So one of the obviously one of the sticking points I'm sure in a lot of the Q&A was about shortstop and asking Huntington, are we getting a shortstop? What's going on? There's a hole. So somebody, I guess the question was basically asked about